Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Morning Star, staring at the silent radio. For 3 days now, he had been trying to contact New Haven Colony. The radio only gave him static and empty noise. This was not normal. New Haven never went quiet. The Morning Star was a big transport ship that carried supplies between the human colonies. Jake had been flying this route for 12 years. He knew every colony, every space station, every shipping lane. New Haven Colony always answered their calls. Always. Commander Helen Brooks stood beside him, her face showing worry. She was the military officer assigned to their ship. Most transport ships carried a military person now, ever since the raids started happening in the outer systems. Helen had served on warships before coming to the Morning Star. She knew when something was wrong. "Try again," Helen said quietly. Jake pressed the radio button. "New Haven Control. This is transport vessel. Morning Star requesting permission to dock. Please respond." Only static answered them. Jake's hands were shaking a little. His daughter Lisa lived on New Haven. She worked as a terraforming engineer, helping to make the planet better for farming. The last message he got from her was 3 weeks ago. She had been excited about the new water systems she was building. She always sent him messages about her work. "Sir," said the navigator, a young man named Paul Turner. "We should be getting their beacon signal by now. All colonies broadcast their location beacon. I'm not picking up anything." Helen moved to the sensor station. She had learned to read the displays during her time on warships. What she saw made her stomach feel sick. "Jake, how many people live on New Haven?" 2 million, Jake answered. "It's one of our biggest farming worlds. They grow food for 17 other colonies." Helen studied the long-range sensors. Space looked empty where New Haven should be. Too empty. "We need to drop out of hyperspace and take a look." "That's still 6 hours away from the colony," Jake said. "Do it." Jake gave the order. The Morning Star's engines changed their sound as the ship slowed down. The stars outside the windows shifted from long lines back to points of light. They were now moving at normal speed through space. Paul checked his instruments. "I'm scanning the New Haven system now." His voice got quiet. "Sir, I'm picking up a lot of debris. And I mean a lot." Helen moved to his station. The scanner showed thousands of metal pieces floating in space. Big pieces. Some were the size of buildings. "Jake, get us closer. But keep the engines ready to run." As they moved toward where New Haven should be, Jake felt his heart sink. The debris field was huge. Pieces of metal, rock, and other materials floated everywhere. Some of the chunks were still glowing hot. "Oh my God," Paul whispered. Where New Haven Colony should have been. There was nothing. No planet. No space stations. No ships. Just a field of broken pieces and cooling rock. The planet had been destroyed completely. Blown apart like someone had cracked an egg. Jake stared at the screen. 2 million people had lived there. His daughter had lived there. Now there was nothing but floating junk. "Sir?" Paul said in a scared voice. "I'm picking up ships. Big ones. They don't match any human design." Helen looked at the new contacts on the scanner. 5 ships, each one bigger than the Morning Star. They had strange shapes, all curves and sharp edges. They looked like they were built for fighting. "Those ships," Helen said slowly. "They're not human." The alien ships had seen them too. Jake could see them turning toward the Morning Star. They were moving fast. "Jake, we need to run. Now," Helen said. "But Lisa might be ... Jake started. "Jake, look at the scanner. There's no planet left. No one survived this. We need to get out of here and warn Earth." The alien ships were getting closer. Jake could see weapons on their hulls. Big weapons. All hands, prepare for emergency jump, Jake announced over the ship's radio. We're leaving now. The Morning Star's engines started charging for hyperspace. It would take 2 minutes to build up enough power. The alien ships would reach them in 1 minute. Helen was already at the communication station. She started recording. A message. This is Commander Helen Brooks aboard the transport Morning Star. New Haven colony has been destroyed. Unknown hostile aliens have obliterated the entire planet. 2 million people are dead. The aliens are still in the system. This is a priority alert to all human forces. The first alien ship fired. A bright beam of energy shot past the Morning Star, missing by only a few hundred meters. The beam was so powerful, it left a trail of glowing particles in space. 30 seconds to jump, Hall called out. Another beam barely missed them. Jake pushed the engines harder, trying to move away from the alien ships. The Morning Star shook as more enemy fire came close. 10 seconds. A third beam hit their rear shield. The ship shook hard. Lights flickered. Jake could smell smoke. Jump! Space twisted around them. The stars became lines again. The Morning Star escaped into hyperspace, leaving the alien ships behind. Jake sat back in his chair, breathing hard. Helen was still at the communication station, sending their message to every human outpost they could reach. Sir, Paul said. Quietly, what do we do now? Jake looked at the empty space where New Haven used to be on his star charts. 2 million people. Gone. His daughter. Gone. The aliens had not even tried to talk. They had just destroyed everything. We go to Earth. Jake said, we tell them what happened. And we make sure those things pay for what they did. Helen finished sending her message. She looked at Jake with sad eyes. I'm sorry about your daughter. Jake nodded. He could not speak right now. The anger was building inside him. Someone had to pay for this. Someone had to answer for 2 million dead humans. The Morning Star flew through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying the worst news in human history. Behind them, the alien ships continued to patrol the debris field that had once been New Haven colony, waiting for their next target. The war had begun, but humanity did not know it yet. Admiral Richard Hayes stood in the war room deep under the city of Geneva. The room was full of screens showing star maps, ship counts, and battle reports. The biggest screen showed the remains of New Haven colony. Chunks of rock and metal floated. Where 2 million people used to live. The room was quiet except for the hum of computers. Every person in the room was thinking the same thing. Someone had just murdered 2 million humans. They had blown up an entire planet like it was nothing. 2 million people, Admiral Hayes said to the room. Farmers, teachers, children, grandparents. They cracked the planet open like they were mining for rocks. General Patricia Adams sat at the big table. She was in charge of protecting all the human colonies. She had seen the pictures from the Morning Star. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever built. They were bigger, faster, and their weapons were much more powerful. We're calling them the Renders, General Adams said. Their ships look like they've been building them for thousands of years. Our best guess is their technology is about 200 years ahead of ours. President John Carter was watching from Washington through a secure video link. His face looked tired and angry. Admiral, what can we do about this? Admiral Hayes looked at the numbers on his screen. Sir, we have about 45,000 warships in our entire Navy. That includes everything from small patrol boats to our biggest battleships. Intelligence thinks the Renders have maybe 200,000 ships or more. The room got even quieter. The numbers were not good. If the Renders wanted to attack more human colonies, there was not much the regular Navy could do to stop them. Under normal conditions, Admiral Hayes continued, I would say we should defend our most important worlds and try to negotiate. with them. But these are not normal conditions, President Carter said through the screen. No, sir, they are not. Admiral Hayes straightened his uniform. Mr. President, I want to activate the Omega Protocol. Everyone in the room started talking at once. The Omega Protocol was something they had never used before. It was only for the worst possible emergency. The kind of emergency where humanity might not survive. General Adams looked shocked. Admiral, the Omega Protocol hasn't been used since the colony wars 50 years ago. Are you sure? Yes, ma'am. They didn't try to talk to us. They didn't ask. Used to surrender. They didn't want our planet or our resources. They just killed everyone and destroyed everything. That's not war. That's murder. Admiral Hayes pulled up new numbers on the big screen. If we activate the Omega Protocol, we can draft every ship in human space that has a fusion engine and can mount a weapon. Cargo ships, passenger liners, mining vessels, private yachts, police boats, research ships. Everything. How many ships would that give us? President Carter asked. Admiral Hayes had been working on these numbers since the Morning Star arrived. His staff had counted every registered ship in human space. 700,000 vessels, sir. It would be the biggest military force in human history. The room was silent again. 700,000 ships. Most of them were not built for fighting. They were cargo haulers, passenger ships, mining boats. Their crews were not soldiers. They were truck drivers, ship captains, miners, and farmers. Sir, said Colonel Frank Stone, who was in charge of ship production, most of those civilian ships have no weapons, no armor, no military training. Then we'll give them weapons, Admiral Hayes said. We'll strip out their cargo space and fill it with missiles. We'll bolt armor to their hulls. We'll mount guns. On passenger ships, we'll turn every floating piece of metal into a warship. General Adams studied the star charts. It will take months to convert that many ships. And training the crews, ... We don't have months, Admiral Hayes said. The renders are still out there. They destroyed one of our worlds. They'll probably try to destroy more. We need to hit them before they can kill anyone else. President Carter was quiet for a long time. Everyone in the room waited for his decision. Finally, he spoke. Admiral Hayes, they killed 2 million of our people. They destroyed New Haven like it was nothing. They didn't even try to communicate with us. Yes, sir. Then we show them what happens when someone hurts humanity's children. Activate the Omega Protocol. Admiral Hayes saluted. Yes, sir. All civilian and military vessels will report for conversion and deployment. Full mobilization of the human fleet. Within an hour, the orders went out across all of human space. Every ship with a fusion engine was ordered to report to the nearest military base. Cargo ships that were carrying food had to dump their loads. Passenger liners had to drop off their travelers at the nearest port. Mining ships had to leave their asteroid fields. The message was the same everywhere. Report for military conversion. Emergency deployment. All crews to be armed and trained for combat operations. Captain Ryan Clark was hauling grain between the inner worlds when the message reached his ship. The Liberty Belle was an old cargo hauler. Ryan had been flying her for 15 years. She was not pretty, but she was tough and reliable. Sir, his navigator said, we're being ordered to Luna Station for military conversion. Ryan looked at his cargo hold full of grain. People on 3 different worlds were waiting for that food, but the orders were clear. Dump the grain. Set. Course for Luna Station. At Luna Station, military engineers were already working on other civilian ships. Ryan watched them strip the cargo space out of a passenger liner and install missile launchers where the swimming pool used to be. They were mounting a big gun on the front of a mining ship. Your ship is next, said Lieutenant Colonel Emma Shaw. She was in charge of converting civilian ships into warships. "We're going to turn your cargo hauler into a destroyer." Ryan watched. The engineers swarm over his ship. They removed the cargo handling equipment and installed missile pods. They put armor plates over the hull. They mounted a huge railgun that ran the entire length of the Liberty Bell. "Sir," one of the engineers said, "your ship can now carry 40 missiles, and that railgun can punch through 2 meters of armor." Ryan looked at his old cargo ship. The Liberty Bell now looked like a warship. Not a pretty one, but a deadly one. All across human space, the same thing was happening. Luxury ships were being turned into troop carriers. Research vessels were getting torpedo tubes. Even small private yachts were being armed with guns. The biggest fleet in human history was being born, and it was angry. Captain Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of his ship and did not recognize it anymore. The Liberty Bell had been a simple cargo hauler just 3 days ago. Now it looked like a warship. The engineers had worked day and night to change it. They had ripped out all the cargo space and filled it with missile launchers. They had bolted thick armor plates to the outside of the ship. The biggest change was the railgun that now ran through the middle of his ship from front to back. When it fired, it would shoot metal slugs faster than bullets. "Sir," said his new weapons officer, a young woman named Lisa Grant, "all weapon systems are online. We have 40 missiles loaded and ready." Ryan nodded. Lisa was from the Navy. She had volunteered to serve on civilian ships that were being converted. Many Navy people had done the same thing. There were not enough military officers to command 700,000 ships. "How many ships are ready?" Ryan asked. "Last count was 650,000, sir. More are finishing conversion every hour." Ryan looked out the window. At Luna Station, the space around the station was full of ships. More ships than he had ever seen in one place. They stretched from Earth almost to Mars. Big ships, small ships, old ships, new ships. All of them now carried weapons. There were cargo haulers like his own, Liberty Bell, passenger liners that used to carry tourists between worlds, mining ships that used to dig in asteroid fields, research ships that used to study planets, even luxury yachts that rich people used for vacations. All of them were now warships. Lieutenant Colonel Emma Shaw watched the conversion from her office window. She was in charge of turning civilian ships into fighting vessels. In 3 days, her teams had converted over 600,000 ships. It was the biggest construction project in human history. "Ma'am," her aide Sergeant Dan Foster said, "we just got the final numbers. 697,000 ships have reported for duty. We're still waiting for some deep space vessels, but we should hit 700,000 by tomorrow." Emma nodded. She had been working for 72 hours straight. Her teams had been working even longer, but they were almost done. "What about crew training?" she asked. "Basic weapons training is complete for most ships. They know how to fire their guns and missiles. Advanced tactics training will have to happen while we travel." Emma looked at her clipboard. The crews of these ships were not soldiers. They were truck drivers, ship captains, miners, farmers, and office workers. But they were all volunteers. When the call went out for people to serve on the converted ships, millions of people had signed up. They all wanted to fight back against the aliens who had killed 2 million humans at Earth's main naval base. Admiral Hayes stood in the command center. The walls were covered with screens showing the locations of human ships. Every dot on the screen was a ship that was ready to fight. "Sir," said his aide, Commander Steve Miller, "Fleet status report. We now have 700,000 vessels ready for deployment. That includes 45,000 regular Navy ships and 655,000 converted civilian vessels." Admiral Hayes studied the numbers. It was an incredible sight, the largest military force ever assembled by any species in the galaxy. But he knew that most of these ships were not built for fighting. Their crews were brave, but they were not trained soldiers. "What about the enemy?" he asked. "Intelligence believes the Renders have about 180,000 ships in their main fleet. Their technology is still better than ours, but we outnumber them 4-1. Admiral Hayes nodded. The Renders had better weapons and stronger shields, but humanity had numbers, lots of numbers. "Sir," Commander Miller continued, "we're getting reports from our scouts. The Renders have been moving around the galaxy for the past month. They've destroyed 3 more planets belonging to other species. They seem to be expanding their territory. Any word on where they're going next?" "Our best guess is they're setting up a base somewhere in the outer rim. They need a place to refuel and repair their ships before they attack more worlds." Admiral Hayes looked at the tactical display. The Renders were smart. They would pick a system that was easy to defend and had good resources. But they probably did not expect humanity to respond with 700,000 ships. "Signal all fleet commanders." Admiral Hayes ordered, "We begin deployment in 6 hours. All ships are to form up in attack formation." Across the solar system, the order went out. 700,000 ships began to move. It was like watching a metal river flow through space. The ships were organized into groups of 1,000 vessels each. Each group had a mix of different ship types that Captain Ryan Clark received his orders. The Liberty Bell was assigned to attack group 247. His group had 500 converted civilian ships and 500 regular Navy vessels. Their job was to attack enemy supply lines. "Sir," Lisa Grant said, "we're receiving formation orders. We're to take position 3,000 kilometers off the starboard side of the cruiser Manchester." Ryan looked at his new crew. Besides Lisa, he had 12 other people. Some were from his old cargo crew. Others were volunteers from Earth. None of them had ever been in a space battle before. "Crew," Ryan announced over the ship's intercom, "we're about to join the largest fleet in human history. We're going to find the aliens who destroyed New Haven Colony. We're going to make them pay for what they did." The Liberty Bell moved into formation with the other ships. Ryan watched as hundreds of other converted cargo ships, passenger liners, and mining vessels took their positions. They did not look like much compared to the big Navy warships, but there were so many of them. At the center of the formation were the heavy warships, battleships, cruisers, and aircraft carriers. These were the ships that would do the most damage in a fight, but they were surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. "Sir," Lisa said, "all ships report ready for departure." Admiral Hayes gave the final order from his flagship. "All ships, begin hyperspace jump. Target, Render forward base. It's time to bring our people home." 700,000 ships disappeared into hyperspace. The largest military force in galactic history was on the move. The Renders had killed 2 million humans. Now they were about to find out what humanity did to those who hurt their children. The hunt was about to begin. The Render aliens had disappeared into deep space after destroying New Haven Colony. But humanity was not going to let them hide. Fleet Admiral Karen White split the huge armada into smaller hunting groups. Each group had 25,000 ships. They would search every star system until they found the aliens. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded a destroyer squadron. After escaping from New Haven, he had been given a new ship called the Vengeance. On the side of his ship, he had painted a picture of his daughter Lisa. Under her picture were the words, "For New Haven." Many ships in the fleet had similar pictures. Photos of dead family members. Names of people who had died on New Haven. Promises to make the aliens pay. The entire human fleet was angry and wanted revenge. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bobby Chun, Morrison's new weapons officer. "We're approaching the Kepler 442 system. Sensors are scanning for any signs of alien activity." Morrison studied the star charts. His hunting group was searching this part of space. They had been looking for 3 weeks now. Every day they checked another star system. Every day they found nothing. "Any ships in the system?" Morrison asked. "Negative, sir, but I'm picking up some strange readings from the asteroid belt. The radiation signatures don't match anything natural." Morrison felt his heart beat faster. "What kind of signatures?" "They match the weapons that destroyed New Haven, sir." Morrison grabbed the radio. "All ships, this is Morrison. We may have found something. Prepare for combat." In another part of the same system, Captain Susan Lee was flying the Star Dancer. Her ship used to be a mining vessel. It had special sensors for finding valuable metals in asteroids. Now those same sensors were looking for aliens. "Captain," said her sensor operator, "I'm detecting unusual metal concentrations in asteroid field 7. The patterns don't look natural." Susan looked at the readings. Her mining experience told her that someone had built something in that asteroid field. Something big. "This is Star Dancer to all units," she transmitted. "I have found something. Sending coordinates now." Within an hour, 25,000 human ships were surrounding the asteroid field. Hidden inside the floating rocks was an alien supply base. It was huge, built into several large asteroids. Alien ships were docked at the base, taking on fuel and supplies. "Sir," Lieutenant Chun said to Morrison, "I count 50 alien ships. They're the same type that destroyed New Haven." Morrison looked at the tactical display. 50 alien ships was a lot. Each one was bigger and more powerful than most human ships. But humanity had brought 25,000 vessels to this fight. "Signal the fleet," Morrison ordered. "Attack formation. We're going in." The battle began when the human fleet opened fire. Thousands of missiles streaked through space toward the alien base. The aliens responded quickly. Their ships were fast, and their weapons were deadly. Captain Ryan Clark's Liberty Bell was part of the attack force. The converted cargo ship dove into the asteroid field alongside purpose-built warships. The aliens fought back with precise shots that could destroy a human ship with one hit. "Incoming fire," Lisa Grant shouted from the weapons station. "Evasive. Maneuvers." Ryan pulled his ship to the left just as an alien beam weapon shot passed where they had been. The beam was so powerful it melted a nearby asteroid. "Return fire," Ryan ordered. "All weapons." The Liberty Bell fired its railgun and launched 6 missiles. The railgun shot hit an alien ship's shield and made it flicker. The missiles exploded against the same ship, overloading its defenses, but the aliens were fighting back hard. Ryan watched as 3 human ships exploded in bright flashes. The aliens were better fighters, but humanity had numbers. "Sir," Lisa said, "we're getting reports from all over the battlefield. We're losing a lot of ships, but we're winning. For every human ship that died, 3 or 4 alien ships were destroyed. The math was simple but brutal. Humanity had brought overwhelming force to this fight. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, all 50 alien ships were destroyed. The supply base was in human hands. But the victory had cost 8,000 human ships and 200,000 crew members." Morrison walked through the captured alien base with a team of Marines. The aliens had built this place to support their expansion into human space. There were fuel depots, weapon storage areas, and computer systems full of information. "Sir," said Colonel Emma Shaw, who had come to examine the base, "we found there computers. Our translation teams are working on them now." 3 days later, the computers gave up their secrets. The aliens called themselves the Renders. They had been expanding across the galaxy for thousands of years. They destroyed any species that got in their way. They have a main fleet, Shaw reported to Admiral Hayes over the radio. About 180,000 ships. They're stationed at a forward base in the Vega system. They're using it to plan attacks on more human worlds. Admiral Hayes studied the tactical information. The Renders had chosen Vega as their base because it was easy to defend. The system had natural barriers that would make it hard for enemies to attack. But the Renders had made one mistake. They were not expecting humanity to bring 700,000 ships to the fight. "How many ships do we have left?" Admiral Hayes asked. "About 675,000, sir. We've lost some ships in the hunting, but most of our fleet is still ready to fight." Admiral Hayes looked at the star charts. The Vega system was 50 light years away. If they moved fast, they could catch the Renders before they realized what was happening. "Signal all hunting groups," Admiral Hayes ordered. "Converge on the Vega system. We're going to end this war." Across human space, the order went out. All 675,000 ships began moving toward Vega. The largest fleet in galactic history was about to fight the largest battle in galactic history. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Vengeance as his ship joined the massive formation. Around him, thousands of other ships were doing the same thing. Converted cargo haulers, passenger liners, mining ships, and luxury yachts, all flying alongside battleships and cruisers. "Sir," Lieutenant Chun said, "estimated time to Vega system is 18 hours. Morrison nodded. In 18 hours, they would face the main Render fleet. The aliens had 180,000 ships. Humanity had 675,000. The Renders had better technology, but humanity had numbers and anger. "Send a message to the crew," Morrison ordered. "Tomorrow we fight for New Haven. Tomorrow we make them pay for what they did to our people." The human fleet flew through hyperspace toward Vega. Behind them, the captured alien base burned in the darkness. Ahead of them waited the final battle. The Renders had started this war by destroying New Haven Colony. Tomorrow, humanity would finish it. The Battle of Vega began when 675,000 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at the same time. Their engines created so much light that it looked like a second sun had appeared in the system. The massive human fleet surrounded the Render forward. Based like a swarm of angry insects, Render Admiral Kethvar had conquered 47 different species during his long career. He had destroyed fleets, broken empires, and watched entire civilizations burn. But he had never seen anything like this. The human fleet was so big that it actually changed the gravity in the system. "This is impossible," Kethvar said in his own language, staring at the tactical display. "No species keeps this many ships." The human fleet filled his sensors. Everywhere he looked, there were more ships. Big ones, small ones, military vessels, and converted civilian craft. All of them had weapons pointed at his base. Admiral Hayes transmitted his message across all frequencies. "This is Fleet. Admiral Hayes of the Human Navy. You destroyed New Haven Colony. 2 million innocent people died because of you. We are here to collect payment for that debt." Kethvar tried to count the human ships, but gave up. There were too many. His own fleet had 180,000 vessels, each one more advanced than anything the humans could build. But the humans had brought nearly 4 ships for every one of his dot. The human response was immediate and terrible. 675,000 ships opened fire at the same time. The space around Vega turned into a storm of weapons fire. Millions of missiles streaked through the darkness. Energy beams lit up the void like lightning. Railgun shots moved so fast they were invisible. Until they hit their targets, the Render ships fought back with their superior technology. Their weapons could destroy human vessels with frightening speed. But for every human ship they killed, 5 more took its place. Captain Jake Morrison led his destroyer squadron straight into the heart of the Render formation. The Vengeance shook as alien weapons hit its shields. Armor plates boiled away under enemy fire, but Morrison kept pushing forward. "Sir," Lieutenant Chun shouted over the noise of battle, "shields are down to 30%. Hull breach on deck 4. Morrison ignored the damage reports. He could see his target ahead, a massive Render battleship that was cutting through human ships like they were made of paper. "All power to engines," Morrison ordered. "We're going to ram that ship." Chun looked shocked. "Sir, that will destroy." U.S. Morrison looked at the picture of his daughter painted on his control panel. Lisa had died when New Haven was destroyed. Now he would join her. "All hands abandon ship," Morrison announced. "This is my fight now." But his crew refused to leave. They strapped themselves into their stations and prepared for the final attack. The Vengeance, with its hull on fire and its shields failing, flew straight at the Render battleship. The collision created a nuclear explosion that lit up half the battlefield. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire. Across the battle zone, similar scenes were playing out. Captain Ryan Clark's Liberty Bell faced off against a Render heavy cruiser. The alien ship's beams carved through Clark's improvised armor like a knife through paper. "Sir," Lisa Grant called out, "we're losing life support. The reactor is overheating." Clark looked at his cargo bay displays. When the war started, he had been carrying mining explosives. The military conversion teams had left some of the explosives in his ship, just in case. "Set collision course," Clark ordered. "We're taking that cruiser with us." The Liberty Bell, trailing fire and debris, slammed into the Render cruiser. Clark detonated his remaining mining charges at the moment of impact. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from the other side of the system. Admiral Hayes watched the battle from his flagship. The human fleet was dying in huge numbers, but they were taking the Renders with them. For every human ship destroyed, 3 alien vessels joined them in death. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost 200,000 ships in the first hour. But the Renders have lost 80,000. Hayes nodded grimly. The mathematics were brutal but clear. Humanity had brought overwhelming force to this fight. The Renders' better technology could not overcome the sheer number of human ships. "All civilian vessels pull back to support positions," Hayes ordered. "Military units, begin final assault." The remaining 400,000 human ships, led by the heavy battleships and cruisers, closed in for the kill. The Render base's shields, designed to stop normal fleet attacks, buckled under the combined fire of humanity's remaining arsenal. The base was built into a large asteroid. When its shields finally collapsed, thousands of human ships poured their fire into the facility. The asteroid cracked, then broke apart, spilling atmosphere and debris into space. The surviving Render ships tried to escape, but humanity had learned from New Haven. They had positioned fast ships at every possible escape route. There would be no running away this time. Captain Susan Lee's Star Dancer was guarding one of the escape routes. When 3 Render ships tried to flee in her direction, she did not hesitate. "All ships, focus fire on the lead vessel," she ordered her small squadron. The mining ship and 6 converted freighters opened fire together. Their combined weapons overwhelmed the fleeing Render ship's defenses. It exploded in a shower of metal and flame. The battle continued for 12 hours. When it finally ended, not a single Render ship remained intact. The 180,000 vessels that had defended Vega were all destroyed. The massive alien base was nothing but floating wreckage. But the victory had cost humanity dearly. Nearly 300,000 ships were gone. Millions of crew members had died. The space around Vega was filled with the remains of both fleets. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the debris field. The stars seemed brighter somehow, no longer darkened by the shadow of the alien threat. "Sir," his communications officer approached with a message pad. "We're receiving surrender offers from 17 render colony systems. They want to negotiate." Terms. Hayes looked at the tactical display. Humanity still had over 375,000 ships, more than enough to continue the war if needed. But the renders had learned their lesson. They had attacked humanity, expecting to face a normal spacefaring species. Instead, they had awakened something unprecedented. "What should I tell them, sir?" The communications officer asked. Hayes thought. About New Haven Colony. 2 million people who would never go home. Families destroyed. Children who would never grow up. The Renders had started this war by committing murder on a planetary scale. "Tell them we accept their surrender," Hayes said finally. "But make sure they understand something. If any Render ship ever attacks a human world again, we will turn their entire empire into space dust." As the human fleet began to disperse, returning to their home systems, the message spread across the galaxy. Every alien species that had been watching from the shadows now understood what humanity was capable of. The humans had taken their entire civilization and turned it into a weapon. They had conscripted every available ship and crew member into the largest military force in galactic history. And they had done it all to avenge 2 million of their own people. The galaxy would remember this battle for 1,000 years. It would remember that humanity protected its children. And it would remember that the price of harming humans was higher than anyone wanted to pay. 2 million had died at New Haven. 675,000 ships had answered that call for justice. The debt was paid in full.